Shalom, 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 yasha'Allah. This your boy, Brother Shamwa Allah. Back at you with another quick edifying video. Today's lesson is going to be called The Righteous Scarcely Be Saved. The righteous scarcely be saved. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, Halal, Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. That's all praises to the Heavenly Father, whose name is Yahawah, and his only begotten Son's name, who you ignorantly call Jesus, whose name is Yahawashi. All right, and the Holy Spirit, which is the Rawchaa Qadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who have ruled well to the Spirit and have fed and edified the sheep in these last days, and has pushed this gospel and this truth to the four corners of the earth in these last days. A mighty shalom. Another mighty shalom to all you Akim out there laboring on the highways and on the hedges and on the unicorn, which is this internet, pushing this 100% doctrine, this 100% truth to the four corners of the earth in these last days. A mighty shalom to you all as well. Like I said, today's lesson is going to be called The Righteous Scarcely Be Saved. Okay, and this is kind of just a little recap too of camp today. You know, we had a brother came up. You know, he knew he was an Israelite. You know, and he was, you know, talking about, you know, Yahawashi's return. And he was talking about, you know, Yahawashi's return and how, you know, Yahawashi is going to, you know, destroy, you know, Babylon. Okay. But, you know, there's other parts to it. And I was trying to explain to him too that, you know, not only is it, you know, Yahawashi and the angels, but it's those ICBM missiles, okay? Because the Lord is going to put the spirit upon these other nations to shoot their arrows or those missiles, those intercontinental ballistics here at Babylon, aka America, okay? So I just want to kind of go over that, all right, just a little bit, just touch bases on it. So Lord's will, this is edifying, right? So this is 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 18. I'm going to start with that. So it says, and if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the ungodly and the sinner appear? Okay. And I looked up that word scarcely, right? And it says only just, almost not, all right? Only on a very short time before, all right? Used to suggest that something is unlikely to be or certainly not the case. But really it's only a very short time before, okay? When you look at the example, it says she had scarcely dismounted before the door swung open, okay? And that's how the righteous are going to be saved, right? That's what the scriptures say, okay? Matter of fact, when you read it in the the NLT, it says, and also, if the righteous are barely saved, what will happen to the godless sinners? Okay. And the righteous are barely going to be saved, right? Or shall scarcely be saved. Okay. Because during this time, right? Like I said, we talked about it. You know, it's going to be chaos, right? There's going to have World War III happening, right? You know, there's going to be fighting, right? But what's going to happen is when those missiles get shot from those other nations, all right, towards Babylon, right before those missiles hit, right? Yahawashi and the angels are returning, and they're going to gather the elect, okay, before the said destruction, okay? And once they beam the elect out, okay, then all hell's going to break loose, right? Those missiles are going to touch down. Yahawashi and the angels are going to be tearing folks up, all right, and making sure that this place is utterly destroyed, okay? And that's how scarce or how barely the righteous are going to make it, okay? Because it's going to be like at that last moment, okay? So let's start here, Salakia. We're going to start in Jeremiah. No, matter of fact, Salakia, we're going to start, matter of fact, let's start here. Revelation 9 and verse number 13, Shalakia 15. Revelation chapter 9, verse 15, and it says, "And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. And I heard the number of them." Okay, and this is, this army is talking about those nuclear warheads. Okay, of those ICBM missiles that are going to be launched at Babylon, right? And the number of them, right, it says is 200,000. Okay, now if we go and look at in the GNT, it says, "I was told the number of the mounted troops," right? These troops is talking about these ICBM missiles, these nuclear warheads. All right. And the number of those nuclear warheads, it says, and it was 200 million. Okay. Because you understand in those ICBM missiles, you can carry multiple warheads inside them. Like we explained at camp. Okay. Those ICBM missiles, those intercontinental ballistic missiles, which just means that they're capable of flying from one continent to the next continent. But inside that missile, okay, you're going to have multiple warheads, which are nuclear warheads, which are going to, once it takes off and before it lands, right, those warheads are going to deploy and hit whatever target, that is set up. Okay. So that's coming. Okay. But we understand before those nukes start hitting, right, Yahawashi and the angels are coming to save the elect, okay, to beam them away from the destruction, okay. But this army of horsemen, right, is talking about. Let's go to the book of Isaiah, right? Isaiah 54 and verse number 16. It says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals." Okay, and we understand that the smith in the ancient days, right, what did he do? He created the blacksmith. He created weapons, right? Things of weaponry, right? But in today, right, the Lord has created, the blacksmith in this modern day age would be these scientists, these nuclear scientists who created this weapon. Okay, so it says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work." It says, "I have created the waster to destroy." And that waster is talking about those ICBM missiles. Okay, so the blacksmith or the scientist, the Yahawah put it upon their spirit to create these weapons of mass destruction. Okay, these thermonuclear warheads. All right, with these ICBM missiles. All right, that within 1 hour, is going to destroy Babylon the Great. Okay, and right now you see where Russia has, the capability to send one of those over in 30 minutes or possibly even less. Okay, so these things, and these were all created for that day of vengeance. Okay, and then that day of vengeance. So if you can understand, this is a rescue. This is like a rescue and an attack mission all in one. Okay, because when Yahawashi comes, right, he's not only coming to bring war and to bring fire, but he's also coming to rescue who? The captives, like in the book of Luke, right, 4:7, talking about the gospel, right, to deliver the captives, okay, to rescue those who are in captivity, okay, and it's really talking about the elect, all right. But Yahawah Bashim Shai is going to be like a rescue and all-out war and rescue mission, okay, simultaneously, okay, if you can understand that, all right. But the waster, has been created, okay, and it's created. The Lord put the spirit upon him to create this weapon, ultimately to bring destruction, okay. Let me see what I need here. Um, let's see. I want. Here we go. Let's read verse 11. All right. It says, Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 11, it says, make bright the arrows, gather the shields. Yahawah, Bahasham, have raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, for his device is against Babylon to destroy it. Right? What is that device? The waster, which he has created to destroy. Okay? It says, for his device is against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of Yahawah Bahasham Shai, the vengeance of his temple. Okay. And if we jump down, so I want to kind of get to the point. Let's see. Matter of fact, probably want 50. Let's go to 50. Okay. Here we go. Right. And the brother had brought this out. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 9. It says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, right? And they shall set themselves in array against her. Against who? Against Babylon. Okay. And those nations, those great nations, is starting with Russia, right? Or Gog of Magog. Okay. As the scriptures talk about. Okay. So, it's, Russia is going to be the ones that are going to be bringing, this destruction, along with their allies. Okay. So you have China, Iran, you have these other nations. Okay. But it says, for lo, I will raise up and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence shall she be taken their arrows, right? And these arrows are talking about the ICBM missiles, all right, with these nuclear warheads, okay? It says, shall be as of a mighty expert man, and none shall return in vain, okay? Jump down to verse 14. It says, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow. Shoot at her, spare no arrows. Okay? Because the Lord is going to empty the chamber of these arrows, these nuclear missiles. So these other nations, right, are going to use the waster. Okay? They're going to use them. Okay? They're going to use them against Babylon, right? And Israel. Okay, but unlike Babylon, once Israel is hit, right, it'll be rebuilt. Okay, that land, that area will be rebuilt, but Babylon will no longer be habitable. Okay, so it says, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow. Shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she have sinned against Yahawah Bahasham Shai. Okay, so these other nations are going to come up against Babylon, right? And we talked about that. Revelation 17 and verse number 16, and it says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. What fire? Those nuclear weapons. Okay, those thermonuclear ICBM missiles. Okay, the Lord is going to use the waster. Okay, for its purpose. Okay, and the nations, right? Why did they do it? Let's jump up to verse number 2. It says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunken with the wine of her fornication. Okay, and when we go to verse number or Revelation 18 and verse number 3, it says, "For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through her abundance of her delicacies." Okay, and it says, and so as you read this, right, this is simultaneously happening. So the nations are going to be, shooting these ICBM missiles, at Babylon. All right, but at that same time, Yahawashi and the angels will be coming. Okay, so when you read here, right, where it talks about the nations, they were angry, right, and with the wrath of her fornication, right, and it says, verse 4, "And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." Okay, because at that same time, right, when we go to the book of Salakia, we go to the book of Matthew, 24, and let's go to verse number 29, right? And you see the title says, "The coming of the Son of Man." So it says, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken." And how they're going to be shaken? Through those ICBM missiles that are going to hit this place. Like we talked about in the book of Isaiah, it says, let me see if I can get that. Isaiah, I believe it's 24. Salakia. This morning and fade away. Might not be it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Oh, here it is. Isaiah chapter 24, verse 20, it says, "The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again." Okay, because when those missiles hit this earth, right, it's going to shake. It's going to have great earthquakes. All right, because of the power, right, of this weapon. Okay, because of the power of this weapon. All right, let's go back to Matthew. All right, 24, and I believe we're at verse 30 now. Right. So it says, "And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken." Let's read on. And it says, "And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." Right? And it says, "And he shall send his angels with a great sound of the trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other." Okay, so as these missiles are getting ready to hit the earth, right? Yahawashi and the angels are coming, okay, and they're coming to what? To gather the elect, right? But also it says, "And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn." Okay, and what are they mourning? Right, because the Lord is coming back for vengeance. Okay, Revelation chapter 1 verse 7, it says, "Behold, he cometh with clouds." Right, those clouds are talking about the chariot. Okay, the chariots of the Lord, or what you would call a spaceship. Okay, "And every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all the kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, Amen." Hey, because they know that, hey, it's over, right? Shit is about to hit the fan, Salakia. All right, when we go to the book of Isaiah 66, verse number 15, "For behold, Yahawah Bahasham will come with fire and with his chariots," right? The spaceships, it says, like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will Yahawah Shai plead with all flesh, and the slain of Yahawah Shai shall be many. Okay? Because not only are those missiles going to be hitting, but Yahawashi, the angels, and their chariots, guess what? Their spacecrafts, they're going to be destroying stuff too at the same time. Okay? It says in the book of Isaiah 31:5, it says, as birds flying, so will Yahawah Shai of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending also, he will deliver it. Okay? Because he's going to what? He's going to be gathering his elect. All right. And at the same time, he's going to be defending. So he's going to be, shooting, casting out. We're going to read that in a second. That's just right. But it says, as birds flying, so will Yahawah Shai of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending also, he will deliver it. And passing over, he will preserve it. That's why it said in Revelation, right? So like I know I'm jumping from one thing to the other, but the Lord's will is you're following me, right? Revelation chapter 18 and verse 4, and it says, I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins. Who Babylon's sins, okay? Because his elect are going to be safe from the said destruction, okay? And it says, and that ye receive not of her plagues. All right. And how do we know that? Let's go back to Isaiah. I believe it's 26. Yep. This is Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 20. It says, come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers and shut the doors about thee. This is talking about in those spaceships, right? People are going to getting beamed up in these spaceships. It says, and shut thy doors about thee, hide thyself as it were for a little moment until the indignation be past. Okay. It says, for behold, Yahawah Shai cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth also shall disclose her blood and shall no more cover her slain. Okay. So the Lord is coming. It's going to be a rescue and a war operation at the same time, because the Lord is coming to rescue and deliver his elect, or the bride, okay, the bride of Yahawashi, okay, which are the elect of the nation of Israel, and he's also at the simultaneously coming to bring destruction, okay, but he's going to secure his bride first, right, in those spacecrafts, and then he's going to bring all hell. Okay. What did I want? Let's get that. It's the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5 and verse number 1. It says, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him and have made no account of his labors. Okay, and those are talking about those who are standing boldly for the name of Yahawah Shai. All right, but it says when they see it, it says they shall be troubled with terrible fear. Right, when they see what? Yahawashi and the angels coming in these huge chariots. Right, Yahawashi is coming Salaki in a huge chariot, and they see the angels in their chariots too, and they see these spacecrafts coming. All right, from outer space, right, from the heavens above. It says, when they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation. Because it's going to be very strange to see so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans getting beamed up into a spacecraft. It says, so far beyond all that they have looked for. Okay. People are not going to be ready for what they see. They were, what is going on? When they see these spacecrafts come and start beaming up, right, the elect, okay, and at the same time bringing destruction, okay, to Babylon and throughout the earth. All right. Now let's get to Yahawashi, right? Second Ezra 13. Okay. It says, I'll start at verse 3. It says, and I beheld, and lo, the man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven, talking about the angels. And it's talking about Yahawashi and the angels. Okay, they waxed strong. What? Because they was coming in these spacecrafts, right? That Esau is not going to be able to deal with. It says, and when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him, right? Because when he returns, what it said, the tribes of the earth shall mourn. They shall travail when they see him. When they see him, oh, people are going to be screaming for fear. All right. That's why it says men's hearts shall fail for the fear, okay, that's coming upon. All right. It says, whenever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned and heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth the fire. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the men that came out of the sea. Okay? Because the nations are going to come up and try to fight against Yahawashi. Okay? The Lord's going to put the spirit upon these, to try to use their little puny human, what is it? What do they call them? Fighter jets, right? To try to come up against spacecrafts, heavenly spacecrafts. Right. Okay. Right. But it says, but I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew upon it. Who's talking about Yahawashi, right? And that great mountain, okay, is talking about the spacecraft, right? It says, but I would have seen the region or place where the hill was graven, and I could not. So Edris was trying to look to see where it began and where it ended. It was so huge. Okay. And it says, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid. Right? They're going to be afraid. Just how Pharaoh was afraid. But what did Yahawashi do to Pharaoh? He hardened his heart. All right, because he wants to magnify his name. All right, and this is the same thing. The Lord wants to magnify his name and his son's name. Okay, so it says, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. Okay, because the Lord, hey, he wants to have, a little fun. All right, so he's gonna put it in their spirit to come up against him, so the angels and himself can destroy him. Okay. It says, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it were had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. Okay, because in these spacecrafts, you're going to have laser beams and different things. This weaponry that, Esau has never seen. Okay. Esau thinks he's got these weapons, but ultimately he has nothing, like Yahawah. Okay. And Yahawah put the spirit upon him to make these ICBM missiles, these nuclear warheads. Okay. But it says, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire and the flaming breath and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burnt them up every one, so that upon of a sudden an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and the smell of smoke. And when I saw this, I was afraid. Right? Ezra was seeing everything. Ezra saw it from the beginning to the end, and then even after. Okay, when Yahawashi, started placing the crowns on those who stood stiffly for the name. So he saw it all. Okay, and he saw this whole multitude basically just become ashes and dust. Okay, not only from those ICBM missiles, but from Yahawashi and the angels and the chariots and the laser beams and the weaponry that they have on those spaceships. Okay, so but this is kind of it's a simultaneous kind of action. Okay, like I said, it's a rescue, and it's a matter of fact. Let's get it right, because when you read, let's get it, and I'm gonna land my plane. Lord's will, you're following me. All right, but this is Luke, Salakia, Luke chapter 4, verse number 18. Right, it says, "The Spirit of Yahawah is upon me, because he have anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He have sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives." Okay, so one of the missions is the deliverance of the captives, right? Which is going to be the elect of Israel on this side, right? Because we know 2/3 of our people are going to be destroyed here, right? Yahawashi and the angels, right? And those missiles, and they're going to be destroying 2/3 of our people here in Babylon, okay? When he returns. But it says to preach deliverance to the captives, right? Those are the elect, the recovering of the sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. So the Lord is coming with a rescue operation, right? But we keep reading. It says to preach the acceptable year of Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi. Okay? So he's coming to rescue, but he's also coming to what? To bring recompense and to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. What is the acceptable year of the Lord? Let's get 2 Peter 3 and verse number 10. It says, "But the day of Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up." Okay, with those ICBM missiles. Okay, with Yahawashi and his weaponry, right? That's gonna turn people into dust. Okay, so the mission is a rescue mission, and then it's also a day of vengeance. Okay, upon the enemies of Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi's children. Okay, starting with the elect. Okay, the elect, they're going to be the ones who are going to be saved, who are going to be able to watch the destruction and the fall of their enemies. All right, so it's going to be a rescue, and it's also going to be a war. Okay, a war or a time of destruction, and it's going to be a simultaneous kind of action. All right, so I just wanted to do this quick lesson, and that's why I said that the righteous shall scarcely be saved. Okay, because this is going to be happening kind of, and the people who are going to witness, they're going to be like, what is going, like, they're going to see people getting beamed up while ICBM missiles is hitting, stuff is blowing up, angels in the spaceships shooting people, zapping people, right? It's going to be far beyond what they've ever thought was going to happen. Okay, this is what we're looking for. All right, this is that good news that the gospel teaches about. All right, so I just want to do this quick lesson. Lord's will, this was edifying. Right, with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, Call Halal Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Peace and blessings to the elect of the 12 tribes scattered abroad. Right, double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone, who have ruled well through the Spirit and have fed and edified the sheep in these last days. Right, a mighty shalom to the 144,000 men. To the rest of the elect, stay diligent, stay focused, keep praying for one another, right? And continue to pray that you may be worthy to escape all these things, okay? And scarcely be saved, as the scriptures say. The righteous shall scarcely be saved, all right? And we want to look down, from those spacecrafts and see the destruction of Babylon and our enemies and our oppressors and those who have come up against us in this truth, man. All right. And that's what we want to see. All right. So with that, I'll say shalom.